Welcome back to Fuck the Mold podcast, where we unpack boxes that society tries to put us in. I'm your host, Jenna Lynn. Today we have with me my good friend, Alyssa Algren. By day, Alyssa works in enterprise financial software. By night, she is the resident DJ at her own residence. She is no stranger to failure and challenging her comfort zone. She considers doing it for the plot a compelling rationalization for most scenarios. Thank you so much for being here, Alyssa. I'm so excited.
Thank you for having me.
Today we are talking about failing forward. We are talking about the highs and lows of life and how to keep progressing even when shit is not going your way.
Yes, I have a lot of expertise in that.
She's like, let's unpack it.
Yes.
So thank you for coming on to literally tell us all about all of your lowest
Yeah.
lows and all your trauma.
I can trauma dump anytime.
That is what we are here for. So we are going to get straight into it. What is your earliest memory of failure?
It's hard because I'm a typical older child. I am one of three. I'm the oldest.
You're going to have to educate me because I'm a youngest child.
Oh, you're okay. Which actually surprises me because you have a lot of characteristics of an older child. So like perfectionist, overachiever, nothing's ever good enough, kind of fixating on your failures and not celebrating your wins because the wins are expected. And then kind of almost a fear of failure. And so when I kind of look at my childhood, it was very much that. I was self-critical. But I would say my earliest memory of something that like came to my mind when I'm thinking about this question is perceived failure, a fear of perceived failure.
Okay.
So when I was in like fourth grade, I played hockey growing up, and we had tryouts. We had the A team and the B team. And at that point, there were no girls' teams. So my sister and I, we played the boys. I made the A team, and my younger sister made the B team. But my dad, didn't want to go driving to all these games. So you can't put somebody up a level, but like you can knock someone down a level. Right. So I got put, even though I made the A team, I put on the B team because of my sister. And it was actually a really good lesson because to me it was unfair. To me, I got this high achievement, and because of my little sister, I'm being brought down. At first, I did not take it well, a little fourth grader, whatever. And it was more so just what everyone else thought. Like, people are going to think I didn't make the A team. It was in this scenario where I had two choices. Looking back at it, as I was a kid, I wasn't really thinking like this, but it's either I could make the best of my situation or I could be miserable the entire season because I'm just pissed off. So what I did was I had a really great season. I had fun with my sister, something I would never trade for the world. That time with her, I cherish forever. I got more ice time because I was one of the better players. I developed my skills. And so it's a little different. It's not like a failure in a sense, but for me, almost perceived failure and personal failure were the same thing because I relied so much on external validation. And when you stop doing that, that's when the true success kind of comes in.
Well, and for two people who played sports at a high level, a lot of the skills that are difficult to develop are the leadership skills within a team. So did you feel like you were able to hone in some of those leadership skills from an early age when you had other people looking up to you maybe on that B team?
Yeah, this was actually very challenging for me. Well, and my sister as well. We were the only two girls in the entire town that played on the boys hockey team of our age. So we were the only girls on the team. And that, I remember we would go to hotels on away games and they'd play shinny hockey and stuff in the hallways. And when we would come out of our room, they would all go back into their room. So we couldn't come play with them.
Early daggers.
Yeah, 100%. Because I was good, it wasn't by my teammates received as well initially because they were all boys. So that, a girl can't be better. And then when you start winning games, you realize, okay, screw our ego. Like, this is fun. Winning is fun. And it did teach me to kind of block out the noise.
There was so much of it, you had no choice.
I had no choice. And when I eventually was captain, when we got a girls team, I was captain in my high school team, and I got to that level. It did shape me as a leader in that I was people's friend, but at the same time, you respected me. I'm not going to make it as hard on you, obviously, as, unfairly treated, like how I experienced it. So that taught me a lot, and that navigating the corporate world and on too.
How did that event impact your decision making moving forward and how you moved in the world?
You notice the difference between, because I've experienced plenty of like actual failure too.
Just like, you're
But
perfect.
it's great to be exposed to both, because you learn that at the end of the day, failure isn't something to be averse to. Failure itself, I mean, it's not great. Like,
No one enjoys
but
it.
but how you react to it creates your reality, and that creates, where you move on from there. And moving forward, I learned that I am in control of so much, and anything outside of that control is not my business. It's not my problem. And
Yeah.
it's just, you're stressing yourself over things that you have no ability to change, which is just poisoning yourself. Like, it's useless. That lesson is something I have continued to learn, and you just kind of hone in on, and you get to the point where you kind of have to be unbothered.
And you kind of take the mentality that you correlate failure with a growth of some sorts, and then it kind
Mhm.
of, you make like a fearlessness of it. You kind of get into the motion of accepting that failure
Yeah,
as understanding that it brings new opportunities or new growth and things
exactly.
like that in your life.
It's not your end all be all. You utilize the failure.
Yeah,
You
you become
utilize
less
it.
averse to it.
Exactly. But that means you also have to humble yourself. Which I've been humbled many times.
We all need a good humble every now and again.
Exactly.
So your mom is an entrepreneur,
Hmm.
and what is something that you learned from her that has kind of helped you redefine what success looks like?
Oh my gosh, my mom's an absolute badass.
What's your mom's name?
Mika. It's actually Mediana, and she's from Croatia. Moved here around middle school age. Her
Okay.
family did. At the time she grew up, it was Yugoslavia, communist, not a lot of opportunity, and they were able to move to the United States.
You
And
pop off, Mika.
I know. And then they moved to Chicago, and then got bullied at school. She had a life. Met my dad, moved up to bumfuck middle of nowhere, Hayward, Wisconsin, opened a store. And that woman, there's something to say about immigrants, seriously, in their mindset. She has worked so hard. She opened a store that started out as selling furniture and home decor, and now it's clothing and accessories, and she's had 4 stores at one point once. And so what she has taught me, in seeing her go through so much, the ups, the downs, the crashes, the successes, is that there were always solutions. There was always another path. Okay, this didn't work. Let's try something else. She was constantly pivoting. It was never, ever accepting a loss and quitting. It was like, great, this didn't work. Now I know. Let me try something else. And it was just constant. Again, the location she was opening up then closed down, and in a small town. And that resiliency, and that she just keeps pushing is definitely how I've grown to be so psychotic myself.
Well, and you kind of take it as, if this is something you are going to pursue, you never stop pursuing it. So
Hmm.
there's kind of a lot of people where they might take, if you needed to get a new location, that maybe this is a sign to throw in the towel. When you
Sure.
believe in that vision so much,
Yep.
the, throwing in the towel just isn't an option, which is what it
Hmm.
sounds like your mom made it, which is,
Hmm.
there is no option. This is my job. This is what I want to
Yep.
do, and we are going to make it happen. And so it's never a stop, it's a
Yep.
pivot.
It's a combination of determination and delusion, I think.
Always is, yeah.
Yeah, you pick a goal, you need to know when to quit and pivot. Not
Hmm.
quit your goal, quit that step maybe and take a different direction. And so it's that you have to have that delusion, have a reality check here and there, but at the end of the day, know what you want and see the different avenues, and don't get so tunnel vision where it's like, if this doesn't work, then none of it's going to work.
Did you feel like you learned when it was time to quit that step? When is it time to pivot?
In struggle, when you're not getting it, and it's that point where it's like, I could either persevere or call it. At the end of the day, I think it's never a bad thing to know when to quit. It's actually a very good skill. When I would be going through these random things in my life, I would go back to one thing, and the ultimate vision for my life in 15 years, where do I see myself? And is what I'm doing in this current moment, is this a skill that's helping me develop to get to where I want to be in any way, shape, or form, like helping my mental health in order for me to get to where I want to be? If it's not, and you're like, okay, this is just kind of draining my time, which is your most valuable resource, then absolutely quit. It's better for you to quit and realize time management and the value of your time and picking another avenue. quitters aren't losers.
I mean, it's absolutely trying to understand what the bigger picture is,
Yes.
and do my day-to-day actions align with that bigger picture is something that I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of people miss, and their day-to-day actions, they don't know what they're building up
And
to.
let your ego die. Seriously, let your ego
Actually, go
die.
bury in the backyard.
But like, not complete. Again, there's always balance and nuance to all of this. Like, obviously, you shouldn't quit everything. Just it's strategically. The ego it's not a negative or a positive. It just is. When it does get in the way, you're not quitting something. You're not a quitter. I'm not a quitter, and you're just, you need to have an ego death in a way in order to get to the next step, and maybe that does look like quitting.
So, as you've said, you literally are truly so unbothered, which seems like a compilation of learned experiences. What was the pivotal moment that kind of made you realize that people's opinion of you or the perception of you is kind of like the lowest form of information that you can receive?
It's a continual journey. I would say the biggest shift I've felt has been this year in the past couple months. I feel like people hit rock bottom in their life multiple times. And each time it's either, you're either going to let it destroy you or you're going to either let it level you up. This was definitely a new level of rock bottom I've hit, but also with that, it's the most amount of growth I've experienced. And so every rock bottom, it's like I care a little bit less on external noise. A little bit less, a little bit less. One rock bottom, and this is what happened to me, just really woke me up, cleared my path and cleared my vision for my life. It sucks, and you got to go through a lot of pain, and especially if you're like me, where external validation has been something I've been seeking my entire life. You kind of put up a front. It's like, I don't care, block out the haters, but like that's what's driving you. Now, officially, it gets to the point where you have to be so sure of who you are. And when the more sure of who you are, I believe there's a direct correlation to the more unbothered you are by other people, because you don't need it. Not everyone is for you, and you're not going to be for them. So it's just let them live their life, live your life. And with that comes exponential freedom. And it's easier the more you do it. You'll catch yourself caring, and then you check yourself, and then it'll happen less and less. And then your default is you're just chill. You're just chilling.
Definitely something that comes with practice, for
Oh
sure.
my gosh. Day in and day out.
Just a shit ton of repetition. So, what do you believe now is your own definition of success? And especially as you're kind of going through this transformative year, what do you think is your definition of success, and how does that seem to differ from others in society?
My definition of success, I would say fulfillment is heavily, heavily tied with success in my eyes. If I can find something that I feel fulfills me in a way that's bigger than myself, I have to have a purpose beyond me. I am not the center of the universe. I want to give back in this life, and I want to be productive in this life and leave a mark. And when I say leave a mark, it's not even like, oh, I have to be remembered generations from now, because that's not true. I just want to have some sort of impact in this life. And so success to me is that if you feel fulfilled, if you are making a positive impact in this world we are so lucky, true and truly blessed to live in, that is success. The metrics around that, it differs from person to person, and that can be more of a like your personal goals.
Well, and it's definitely very different than society, because so much of society's definition of success is tied to some type of external element. As much as we want to kind of showcase to other people what we've done, you're like, I don't even want to be remembered. I don't need to be remembered generations from now. I just need to make an impact for somebody's experience outside of my own.
Exactly.
How do you think, in terms of resilience, how much do you think a strong sense of self is important to having that resiliency in life?
Everything. It's the backbone. Growing up and throughout my whole life, I had the strongest and weakest sense of self. It was my strong point and my strongest point and my weakest point. It was my strongest point in that I was very confident in my abilities, and I gave everything I had to anything I did. But then the weakness came in where it was like nothing was good enough. I was chasing perfection when that doesn't exist. When you let that perfectionism take over, it's crippling. It's you are when you're the center of the universe, that's all that matters. And so every little thing is detrimental. Everything that happens to you that's all that matters in the world. And you're so consumed with yourself that's when you spiral downward and you get into your hole. So when you have that strong sense of self, it's almost like that's when you can look at failures as opportunities. That's when you can really create your own reality and say, okay, how is this going to teach me a lesson? Or sometimes shit just happens to you because life is hard. Sometimes there's not a lesson. Sometimes it's just shitty. How you respond to that is just as important as to the failures where you're learning a lesson. Your sense of self, ignore everything else, work on that first, and you'll see your life change. It's the backbone of everything, in my opinion.
That sense of perfectionism that you're talking about, I obviously, I struggle with perfectionism as well. I think a portion of that perfectionism is always feeling like current state, there is more to me. If I have nothing more to strive for, then that means that my current self is peaking. And so accepting that you're peaking is difficult. Like, I don't
Right.
want to think that this is the
Right.
best it's ever going to be.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a portion of it too, that you're just kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, well, this can't be all I'm capable of. And so there's always just that more you can give. And then that gets you kind of in that rut. Whether or not you go down that hole is determined by your sense of self. If I didn't have that strong sense of self, I say, oh, there is more, but I'm not capable of it. And that strong sense
Mm-hmm.
of self says there is more and I am capable of it. And
Right.
then we go and we chase it.
Yes, exactly. Another aspect of that too is just being at peace with where you are, enjoying
Stop
where
attacking
you
me.
are. Like, well, I mean, I need to.
Yeah.
I
We're actually
practice this.
preaching to ourselves.
Seriously, no, for real. But this is the biggest thing. I think no, this is the number one thing I'm working on right now, and I've gotten a lot better at it. Not perfect, obviously, but come a long way, definitely. Truly enjoy the ride because it is the most fun part. If you don't enjoy the moment and where you presently are, what's the point of what you're working towards? You need to be at peace with where you are, and that also makes you more level-headed. You make better decisions. You're not so emotionally, trying to impulsively get to the next step when you're maybe not ready. So that's a really important thing that I think people forget about is that even if where you are isn't where you want to be, enjoy it anyway.
When I think a lot of people think that they're chasing a singular end goal,
Mhm.
and it's the goal isn't, I've seen tons of videos that are the goal isn't to run a marathon, the goal is to become a runner.
Mhm.
And to actually do that, you have to have enough repetition behind you, which means that you actually have to go out and run.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of that same thing is, okay, I might not be where I'm going, but how am I casting votes day in and day out to make sure that I'm becoming that person and
Right.
enjoying it along the way? Because
Mhm.
if you don't enjoy the journey, then you're likely not going to even make it to this elusive end goal that you have, because you're going to burn
Right.
out because you don't actually enjoy whatever that journey looks like.
Exactly.
Okay, so we talked about sometimes shit just sucks. Sometimes there isn't always a silver lining. What are some of the coping mechanisms that you found that work best for you, especially having a perfectionist brain and that
Mhm.
type of type A
Yes.
mentality?
First thing that came to my head, and something I've only recently started to allow myself to do, is let yourself feel. Let yourself be bummed. Take it all in and process it, and don't try to fix it right away.
That's a scary place for people to be
It's
in.
a very scary place. And also, not always relying on other things, again, the external stuff, to make you feel better. Just sit in your feelings by yourself. It sucks. And then you will hit a point where you're like, I'm sick of feeling sad over this. Like, I'm over it. You just processed it instead of shoving it down and then it's going to come up later. When you're kind of in that annoyance, it's almost like positive anger. It's like determination. I feel like that's when you kind of make your biggest step, is right after that.
A lot of people will say that the longer that you can sit in that discomfort is going to be a really high indicator on what comes next or
Mhm.
what that success looks like out of there. You really understand that strong sense of self coming out of sitting with all of those feelings.
Having the ability to process that and move forward is such an invaluable skill to have. That kind of goes with the unbothered thing. Then things just roll off your back more and more. Things bother you less and less. Things don't seem as, you know, mountainous and huge. So if you can get that down, you're golden.
With so much of failure, it seems like being perspective. You have a different perspective. Every individual that you pass in life is going to have a different perspective on failure. Do you believe that failure is real?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Failure, objectively failure is real. Because then success wouldn't exist. You have to have a contract. Like what's the, you know what I mean?
Yep.
If you don't know what failure is, you don't know what success is. It's all about your relationship with failure. Are you afraid of it or are you embracing it? It's like you don't want to fail, but are you embracing it as it comes and as an opportunity to learn? Then you're using failure as a guide to success. So failure absolutely exists. I know there's quotes out there that are just like, there's no such thing as failures, there's only lessons. You have to have that realist mindset of there are true failures out there. I have to be cognizant of it. Looking at failure as something that doesn't exist isn't the balanced approach I would take.
If everything was always roses, then you don't have to sit with that discomfort.
Yes.
It's almost an avoidant
It's
perspective.
correct. Yeah.
So if you don't really embrace that failure is the yin to the yang, or that it is constantly in a balance in your life, then you're kind of missing out on being able to have those stepping stones and learning points to propel you to whatever that next level looks like.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, so this is my final question. I always ask for advice. So the final question is going to be, what advice would you give to other people who feel paralyzed by their failures?
It's every single day. A, focus on this day. B, acknowledge your fears. And I'm guessing people mostly feel paralyzed because there's a million different things. It's almost like option over, like which direction do I take or which thing do I need to take care of first?
Yep.
Pick one thing. If it makes you uncomfortable, I don't even care. Just focus on that one thing and then do it. Be uncomfortable and then fake like you're not. Like I went to Miami Music Week solo, no plans, no tickets, no nothing. And I went by myself, figured it out. I was never alone. I met so many people. Was it a smooth ride? No. I almost left many times thinking like, oh, this isn't going to work out. I'm never going to find a ticket this late notice. I'm never going to find people to go with this late. And I figured it out along the way because I kept pushing and I said, I'm so uncomfortable right now. I don't care. Like I'm doing this because I create my reality. And the more uncomfortable you get, it's like, okay, this makes me a little uncomfortable. I just did that. This makes me a little more uncomfortable. I just did that. It's when you push yourself out of your comfort zone, failure is so much less scary.
Well, I recently watched the Simone Biles documentary, No One Come For Me. I know it's been out for a while. She said in there, do something that scares you every single day. That's how you put one foot in front of the other. Mm-hmm. And you kind of don't know that doing the scary things will bring you success until you actually do it enough to see that come to fruition. So
exactly.
It's almost this, devil's conundrum of, I have to do the thing to realize how valuable it is, but I'm scared to do the thing.
Exactly. Well, and then the most important part, celebrate it. Afterwards, celebrate it. You need that positive, your brain needs that positive reinforcement afterwards. You just went through you just accomplished a fear. That was big. Probably freaked you out. There were some moments where you're like, I can't do that, I can do this. And then you just kept going. So it's like you went through a process. So afterwards, celebrate yourself. Have that positive reinforcement. Reward yourself. You have that gratification and to keep you going into the next fear or what have you challenge.
Yeah. I struggle with that heavily, as we talked about. I don't celebrate nearly enough because I do feel like it's expected, or in my head I've already succeeded it, or I knew I was capable of it, so when I achieve it I'm like, well, duh. And so it's definitely hard to take that step to celebrate, but it's definitely important.
Giving yourself credit is a hard thing to do for some reason.
I don't know why, but
we're so great.
Yeah, with my ego, I should be easy. Well, thank you again so much for coming on. This was so insightful, and hopefully everyone else can have some more transparent conversations about what failure looks like in your life and how you can kind of face that fear head on and really take steps to overcome it and understand how reaching failure points can really propel you into new levels into your life. I will see you guys next time. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.